All right, everybody, welcome back to the Endurance Sports University Triathlon Study Hall, up to episode number 10, September 9th. We are pushed back one day. I apologize for the inconvenience and the frustration yesterday. I had some technical difficulties that, despite my technical awesomeness, wasn't able to overcome it. So we're here tonight. I want to get this information to you guys and gals. Anyone out there who is racing Ironman, this is going to be a very important thing for you. Anybody who's racing a half Ironman, it's going to be an important thing for you. Anybody who's doing an Olympic distance event, it's going to be important to you. Anybody who's doing a sprint distance event, ride your bike as hard as you can and still be able to run a 5K afterwards. That's the goal. All right, so let's get into it. All right, so a little bit about me. For those of you that haven't been on or don't know me, my name is Ryan Reel, USAT Level 2 coach, youth and junior certified coach, master's degree in exercise physiology, biomechanics. I have a second one in organic and biological chemistry. I'm a USA Triathlon high performance team head coach and team director. Been doing that since 2011. Was one of the elite coaches over at Training Bible before I decided to break off and do my own thing this year when I started Endurance Sports University. So that's a little bit about me. What is Endurance Sports University? For those of you that haven't come across us yet, international leader in triathlon education and coaching resources and services for athletes, self-coached athletes, and for coaches. The coaching staff over here at Endurance Sports University is growing pretty rapidly. Hope to have another one or two coaches added on in addition to the two that we have right now. So we're really growing, looking forward to doing some great things and helping you guys and gals for the rest of the 2015 season, and then as we transition into 2016, really want to just help as many athletes as we can overcome adversity and achieve their goals. That's what we're here for. That's what all the coaches are here for. If they're not getting out of bed because they have a very, very deep-seated passion to help athletes accomplish their goals, then they're not here. So that's what we're aiming at. A little bit of information about our membership program, specifically engineered for self-coached athletes and athletes on a budget. Comes with an initial one-on-one consultation, same basic thing that the personal coaching clients get. Training plan of your choice delivered in 4-week blocks. So any race distance, intermediate, beginner, advanced, whatever you're needing to suit you. Triathlon study hall calls, which are these. These aren't going to remain open to the public forever. But as of right now, they are. And then ultimately, you get the private Facebook group with weekly accountability, some good stuff floating around in there. Weekly coaching tips and motivation. And then one of the really big things, which I probably ought to move up this list, is access to the private articles, videos, and MP3s, which includes the video archives of these coaching calls that we're doing right now. So pretty solid program that we came up with. It's a 4-week commitment, 28-day notice to cancel. Right now it's at $49.99 for every 4 weeks. If you guys want to give it a try for free, we've got a 2-week free trial. Use that discount code right there, MPRO-2-weeks. We get you 2 weeks for free. It's an easy way to check out all the archives, look around, see what you like, try the training program, see how you like it. And if it works, keep going. If not, then we go our separate ways, and we were glad to have a chance to help you for a little bit. So real quick, new contest that we got going on for September in conjunction with the membership program. Anyone who's going to register for the 6 months or 12 months, you're entered to win that 920 XT right there. 6-month purchase, that's gets you 1 entry. 12 months gets you 2. Drawings can take place on October 1st. So if you're interested or needing a 920 XT, this could be pretty awesome. If you have a 920 and you're like, well, shoot, I want to win something else, shoot me an email. We can come up with another prize for you that's pretty equivalent to that 920, maybe a cycling computer or a very, very, very steep discount off a power meter or something like that. So, all right, let's get into tonight. I'm really excited about what we're going to talk about. This is some outstanding stuff. We're going to talk about how to dominate any of the Ironman bike courses. And this is some newer stuff that I learned over the last probably, January, I would say. Earlier in this year, January is when I really started digging into this, reading about it, and really trying to dig further into the concept of training stress score and what we're trying to do on a bicycle, not only on race day, but how to prepare for that in training as we're getting ready for our big race. So this stuff is just absolutely outstanding. I think every athlete that I've worked with this year that has done a 70.3 or an Ironman has set a PR, and it's pretty doggone spectacular. Everybody seems slightly skeptical. You go with the formula, you believe the math, and you go out and you train and you do it. They go out on race day, and it's like, boom, holy cow, how did I just pull that off? So really, really exciting stuff here. And then ultimately open it up to questions and answer session. Get any questions you guys have. So if any questions along the way, type them in. I'll get to them once I'm done with the short presentation. Any questions about the presentation, type them in. any questions about anything else, triathlon, swimming, biking, running, transition, mechanics, or the lunar cycles and how that affects your swim stroke, which it doesn't really, but we can discuss that anyways. Type it in there, and I will do my best to get you an answer. If you can stump me, I will give you a gift certificate to either Garmin or PowerTap, your choice, but you got to stump me. You got to legitimately stump me. And if you do, I will come back to you and I'll get you the correct answer if I don't know it right now. So I want to get tested tonight. I want you guys and gals to give me some good questions. I want to hand out a gift card to anybody who can stump me. All right, so Ironman bike courses. So ultimately, the Ironman bike, the bike course, the bike leg, it's the longest one of the race, right? So whether it is 56 miles, whether it is 112 miles, or whether it is 40K, it is the longest part of the race, and it is ultimately the bike leg. It can and it will make and or break your race. Right? If you have a poor bike ride, you will have poor results. If you have a good bike ride, you're going to have good results. That's pretty straightforward, right? No kidding. But the bigger part of this comes in, how is it going to affect your run once you get off that stupid bicycle, right? So if you ride too hard, you're going to have a heck of a time on the run. If you don't ride hard enough, you're going to run well, but how much time did you leave on the bike course? And that's the balancing act that triathletes have to figure out while they're out on the course, while they're developing their race plan, while they're training, and ultimately on race day when they go out to execute it. Ultimately, we can use technology to develop a race plan, which is what we're going to cover in a little more detail this evening. We can test that race plan. It's going to help us execute the race plan. And ultimately, you're going to achieve your goal. And that's what we're doing this for. You guys are on this call to learn, to try to get better, to get answers to your questions, and to try to go faster. Anybody who's listening to this after the call, not getting it live, same difference. Right? That's why we're here. Any of you that are working with an Endurance Sports University coach, or you're working with another coach, or following a training program, or whatever it is, we're doing all this work. You're doing all this work in order to achieve your goal, and that's a new PR. So that's the basics of the bike course. So how are we going to use the technology to help us, right? And modern technology, it is now available and accessible to athletes of all ages and abilities, and most importantly now at a reasonable price. When I first got into this stuff, 2006, 2007 timeframe, you couldn't get into a power meter for under about $1,000, and that would be a alloy training wheel from PowerTap with the wire that you had to run across the down tube and up along the headset and wrap it around and do all this funky stuff. And now this stuff with Garmin and PowerTap and Bluetooth, you get done, you walk in the door, Mr. Garmin or PowerTap says, "Hey, I see some Bluetooth," and boom, they send it to the internet, boom, into Training Peaks. It just can't be easier. It can't be easier for you guys and gals right now. So nowadays, power meters, they're retailing anywhere from about $7.99 and up, so a couple $100 less expensive, but the technology, it's wireless, it's Bluetooth, it's absolutely amazing. This is technology that would have been $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 back when power meters really started to come out. Second option, heart rate monitor. Definitely a good standby. If we were in the 80s instead of the 2000 teens, we would be talking about heart rate monitor and how awesome it is. At this point, heart rate monitor is pretty much the most overrated piece of equipment that is available and usually owned by athletes. So that's a heck of a statement right there. How do I say a heart rate monitor is the most overrated piece of equipment that is available? Well, let me explain. We have output metrics and we have input metrics. And this is the dead horse that I tend to beat in all of these different triathlon study hall calls and anytime that somebody wants to talk to me about power and gauging intensity and developing race plans. So I'm going to make this one a little bit quicker than all of the other ones where I kind of tend to keep going. So output metric, right? That is something that is measuring the effort that you're putting out. It's the output, right? And in terms of cycling, what that is that's power, right? That is some sort of device that is ultimately either measuring or very closely estimating the amount of force you're applying to the pedals every single time you push down on the pedal. And that's expressed in watts, right? So uppercase W. A watt's a watt. It doesn't matter whether you're going uphill or downhill, with or against the wind, whether you have a crosswind, whether you are doing anything else, a watt is a watt, right? It's measuring how hard is this athlete pushing down on the pedal. Right? That's what it's measuring. That is an output, right? Then there are input metrics. Input metrics are created and determined by the output, right? So whatever intensity you're riding at on the bicycle, that determines your heart rate. Everybody can agree with me on that one, all right? So if the intensity that we're riding with, which we can measure in watts directly by either literally directly measuring the pedal or anything from pedal to crank arm to chain ring to the chain to the bottom bracket to the hub to all kinds of different things, right? What we ultimately are doing is measuring that output. That's determining the input. That's determining your heart rate, right? So which one would make a better metric to gauge, hey, how hard am I going? What do I need to be doing? The output metric. That's what you're putting out. Remember, at the end of the day at Ironman, the person that wins, the person that qualifies for Kona, that's the person with the fastest time, not the highest overall heart rate for the bike, not the highest average heart rate for the run. It's who swam, biked, and ran the fastest. And that has to do with output, right? So the whole point of this is output metrics using power is your absolute gold standard, and it quite frankly, it's cheating. It is legalized cheating in an Ironman or half Ironman to race and to train with a power meter if you know the information I'm about to show you, right? So if you understand what is a power meter doing for me, how am I using this to develop a race plan, how am I using this to develop my training, how am I using this to evaluate my training, how am I using this to readjust my race plan, right? If you understand that, legalize cheating. There is a reason that a lot of the professional athletes use a power meter. There's a reason for it. There's a reason that the majority of the top high-end age group athletes, the one that you guys and gals might be chasing after for a Kona slot or for a 70.3 world slot, they're using a power meter. If you're not, they have an advantage over you. They have a technological advantage. You are behind the eight ball. The deck is stacked against you. Whatever other proverbs or neat little sayings we want to come up with, if I have a power meter and you don't, and we're of equal ability and we're racing, I have an advantage. Absolutely. And if I had to bet money on person A and person B, A has a power meter, B has a heart rate monitor, I'll take person A all day long, especially if they know how to use it. So PowerTap and Garmin, those are some two really solid power meter brands. PowerTap's been doing it forever. Garmin's just gotten into it. With technology, we can leverage that to take advantage of the science, of the exercise science. So how exactly do we do that? And the big metric that we're looking at is training stress score, or TSS. All right. So when we take a look at that, we have a formula that looks like this. So TSS, training stress score. What that is a measurement that is, or a number that is created from that calculation that you see right there, that is a very good estimate of the training stress or the load that a given session has put on your body, right? So this can be determined for swimming, for biking, and for running, right? We're talking about cycling this evening, okay? So training stress score is how hard was the workout? How much training stress did it put on you, right? And what it's measuring is the interplay between volume and intensity, right? So if we take a look at the red metrics right here, we have seconds, right? So that's the time of the session in seconds. We have NP for normalized power, right? Remember, normalized power is the number that if you would have pedaled smoothly the entire time, that's the best estimate of the physiological cost in terms of power measured in watts of a ride, right? So what it's doing is it's basically removing all the lows, all the zeros from coasting, from sitting at a stoplight, from whatever it may be, and it's smoothing out the highs, and it's giving us a representation of what was the true power output, what was the true demand of a ride. Right? The third one, IF, or intensity factor, that is normalized power divided by your FTP. Remember, FTP, functional threshold power, or your power output at lactate threshold. Right? So intensity factor, when you divide normalized power by FTP, that's the percentage of FTP that you rode at using normalized power. Pretty straightforward. So how do we use training stress score, and how do we use that to develop a race plan? Because the process is we got to develop a race plan. We got to have an idea of what do I want to do on race day. Right? Now I'm going to go through an example for you after I show you kind of what this is. What do I want to, how fast do I want to ride this thing on race day, and what's my FTP? If you have that information, we can do everything else very, very easily. All right. So how do we do this on race day? What we're looking for with training stress score is we need it to be within some acceptable ranges that's going to give us the best chance to run off the bike. So for Ironman, we want a cycling TSS of somewhere between 260 and 290. For a 70.3, somewhere between 160 and 190. For an Olympic distance, somewhere between 90 and 100. All right, so those are our goals on race day. You guys just have to select the one that the general area that you think is going to be best for you. And I'm going to talk more about this here on the next couple slides. This is the process that I go through on one of the first, or if not the first, the second coaching call that I have with a new athlete is, let's develop a race plan. Because once we know what the race plan is, now I can develop the training to make sure that they can execute the race plan. And if they can execute the race plan, I think we all win. All right, so that's what we're doing with the training stress score. That's the first thing. We got to know, what TSS are we aiming at here. All right, so what we need to talk about real quick is a little more math. We need to be able to take that formula and we need to be able to simplify that. And when we do it, I'm just going to tell you how it breaks down. Training stress score is equal to your intensity factor squared multiplied by the time as a decimal. Right? So if you're going to do 5 hours, it's 5.0. If you're going to do 5.5 hours, it's 5.5. Right? If you're going to do 5 hours and 50 minutes, if that's your goal, you need to divide 50 divided by 60. Right? So whatever that decimal is, and put a 5 in front of it, and that gives you the decimal version of 5 hours and 50 minutes. Right? We multiply all that by 100, and that's going to estimate our training stress score. We can rearrange this to calculate the intensity factor, and it looks like this. If we take the square root of training stress score divided by the time of the session multiplied by 100, that gives us our intensity factor. Right? So these two equations, these are going to be the big ones for those of you that aren't working with an Endurance Sports University coach right now. Any of you who are, you've already seen this, I'm sure. If you haven't, then you haven't seen it for whatever reason, and contact me or your coach afterwards, and we'll figure out why you haven't seen it. So these are the big equations. Write this down. This is important. I'll give everybody a second to get a pen and a paper. These bottom two equations right here, those are your big ones. All right, so with this, if we know what the training stress score we're aiming at is, and we know what time we want to ride, we can solve for intensity factor. If we know what the intensity factor is, we know that IF is also equal to your normalized power divided by your FTP. You should know what your FTP is. If you know what the IF is, because you can't calculate it right here, you can now determine the normalized power you need to ride at on race day. That's the whole thing right there. Pretty straightforward and simple. So this chart that you see popping up right here, this is the moneymaker right here. So let me orient you on this and then try to kind of go into an example. So on the left-hand side, we have time. Right? So this ranges anywhere from 4 hours and 30 minutes up to 8.5 hours. Across the top, we have the intensity factor. Right? It's just expressed as a percentage, so it's whatever the intensity factor is times 100. So if it's 0.65 times 100, that gets you 65%. Okay. So what we have in the middle, these are all the training stress score numbers. Right? And so now the color codes, let's talk about those. Anything that you see here in white, that simply means the guy or the gal didn't ride hard enough. They left too much out on the bike course. So the green that we're seeing right here, this is a good solid safe range for less experienced runners or for somebody brand new to Ironman. Right? And we go to the yellow band that's coming across here. That's a good solid range for most age group athletes that have done an Ironman. They're going to prepare for it. Good solid training program, working with a coach that knows what they're doing. The gold range, the yellow range is, right about where you're wanting to be. Then we have the gold range, which is just to the right of the yellow. That's for proven strong runners at the Ironman distance. So for a guy who can drop a 3:15 or less, feel free to get up into the gold. For gals, you got to be 3:30 or less before you're going to really look at getting up into the gold here. All right, that is going to take it out of your legs. Right, so if you are a very strong runner, you're good to go. If you are not a very strong runner, you're really starting to risk it by getting up into the gold. All right, we get into the light orange right here. You get up into that area, you're gonna be forced to walk run. Probably gonna end up walking it in. You get into the darker orange stuff, and you're definitely walking a good portion of the marathon. You get up into this dark red stuff in the upper right hand corner, and quite honestly, I'd be somewhat surprised if you finish the race. All right, so obviously there's exceptions to this, but that's kind of the general thing. So let's take a look at an example. Let's say that we have an athlete who says, all right, hey, Coach Ryan, I want to hire you. I need to, need a new PR at Ironman Chattanooga or Arizona or Florida or next year Texas or whatever it is, and I want to ride that course in 6 hours. All right, sounds good. So what we're going to do is now I chopped down that chart and I made it a lot more larger and user friendly here. So what we need to do is try to figure out, okay, where do we want this athlete to be in this row that is the 6 hour mark, right? So we know that if they are brand new to Ironman, we're looking at something around 254 or 261, right? That is on the lower end, but for somebody that's brand new to it, somebody who's not a strong runner, that's a good safe range. It's going to give them the best chance to ride well and have a legitimate shot at running a marathon. All right, if we get up into the yellow range, right, this is now where I would say most age group athletes are going to end up, right? And this could be looking at anything from 269 to 277 up to 286. If we get into that gold range where we're talking, hey, you would darn well better be a strong runner. Now we're getting up into that 294, 302, and 311. Remember the range we were looking at, 260 to 290, right? So these four cells right here, 261, 69, 77, and 86, that's where I would probably put this athlete. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at what exactly this means. So I went ahead and did this ahead of time, so we wouldn't sit here while I tried to figure out how to highlight and change colors of cells. So for this athlete, I selected the 277, right there where the cursor is, and it's a bold number, 277. All right, so what that's telling me is in order for this athlete to ride 6 hours, if they need to have a training stress score of 277, which equates to 68% of FTP using normalized power, right? So with that, we have the two charts below that I've already filled in, right? So the goal split, 6 hours, right? Right here, that's just the decimal number. That's the number of seconds. FTP for the athlete, let's say it's 220. The goal training stress score, I entered in 277, intensity factor 0.68. Goal normalized power, but that's telling us 150 watts, right? So 68% of 220 is 150. It's 149.8 or something like that, right? So we round up. You don't get the decimal points on the power meter, right? So with this information, I now know what this athlete has to do, but that's only half of the equation for this, all right? So that's really great, sure, 150 watts, normalized power, got it, no problem. And all that, if I can do that for 112 miles, that's going to put me at a TSS of right about 277 plus or minus 1. It's going to give me an intensity factor of 0.68. Does that guarantee me I'm going to ride it in 6 hours? No, it doesn't, right? Because the second part of this is the average speed right down here, lower right-hand corner in yellow. This athlete has to ride the bike at an average speed when they get done and they hand the bike to the volunteer before going to grab their bag to go into T2. They better have an average of 18.67 miles an hour or they didn't ride 6 hours. There's no arguing with that. You either ride the speed you need to ride to hit the time or you don't, right? So this interplay, this is where the value of having a real solid understanding of all the power meter metrics, how it all works, an understanding of how to ride a bicycle, understanding of the gearing, and a basic understanding of how to put together a training program to achieve this goal, right? If your training isn't supporting this goal specifically, what are you doing on a bicycle is my question, right? That doesn't mean that every single thing needs to be, hey, no, just ride at 150 watts, normalized power the entire time. That's all you got to do, right? No, wrong answer. If anyone's out there doing that, you're wrong. You're not getting the most out of your time. You're wasting a tremendous amount of time. And you need to send me an email and I'll put you in touch with either me or one of the other coaches and we'll get you set up with someone who knows what they're doing. All right. So there's high intensity training. There's long, slow distance type stuff. And they each have their part in a good, solid, well thought out polarized training model. All right. But at the end of the day, the race specific training, you got to be able to ride at 150 watts and at 18.67 miles an hour. If you can't do 18.67 at 150 watts, you're not riding 6 hours. What does that mean? That means I either have to shift to one gear harder in order to get my speed up, but now what happens when I do that? Boop, up goes the power. Now I'm at 160 instead of 150. That's where the training has to support the race plan. That's where we have to be able to critically look at power files. We have to be able to talk to the athlete and see, hey, what's going on? Tell me about the ride, right? Your normalized power was dialed in. The speed was a little low. Or, hey, you nailed the speed. Normalized power was a little too high. Or, hey, you nailed it all. Maybe we look at 5:45 instead of 6 hours, right? That's the advantage of having an extra set of eyeballs watching what you're doing, right? So this is your example, right? And you can do this same basic set of calculations for the full Ironman. You can do it for a half, and you can do it for an Olympic distance, right? Remember, 260 to 290 for the full, 160 to 190 for the half, and between 90 and 100 for the Olympic. It's pretty straightforward, guys and gals. So, all right, what happens if you don't have a power meter? What if you only have a heart rate monitor? You need to send an email to info@endurancesportsuniversity.com, and I'm going to get you a Power Tap or a Garmin, and I'm going to get you 15 to 20% off of retail pricing. You're not going to get a better price than that at a store unless you have the really sweet hookup at a bike shop, and I'm sure some of you do, right? But the markups for power meters, it's not 50%, right? This is about as good as it's going to get, right? So whether it's a Power Tap has 3 options for you. They got the classical one that's built in the hub. They have the one that's in the pedals, and they now have the new one that just came out that's in the chain rings. So 3 different options for Power Tap. Garmin has them in the pedals. It's the Vector pedals. All 3 Power Taps and the Garmin, outstanding products. I've had athletes that have worked with the Garmins. They've worked with 2 of the 3 Power Taps. Now the chainring one just came out, so I got to get that on somebody's bicycle and see how that works. So if you don't have a power meter and you want one, you need to send me an email, info@endurancesportsuniversity.com. Let me know what you're thinking, what your budget is, and I will get you the best power meter that I possibly can at the absolute best price that I possibly can. All right, so I'm going to take care of you guys in that regard. So what are the conclusions? You got to use the proper output metrics for training and for racing, right? That means power. That means power. I'm sorry for those of you that don't have a power meter. You got to have it. Those of you that do, I'm preaching to the choir. All right, next one. Make sure you're using the proper goal marathon times for your training zones, which is obviously not the right bullet point for this presentation. So let me go ahead and just edit that one on the fly. All right, so you need to make sure that you have a good, solid, accurate FTP. You need to sit down and decide what training stress score do I want for my race, right? If I'm doing an Ironman, do I want to be down by 260 or do I want to be up at 290? And in order to answer that, how strong of a runner are you? Do you run really well or not so well, right? And you pick the TSS, right? And you have the equations from before, right? So TSS is equal to intensity factor squared times the total time as a decimal point times 100. That'll give you the TSS, right? You can do the funky math for that. And if you take, what was it? Normalized power, or TSS divided by the time of the ride times 100, take the square root of that. That's going to give you the intensity factor, right? Intensity factor is equal to normalized power divided by FTP. Multiply both sides by FTP. That's going to isolate normalized power. Tells you what you need to do on race day, right? Once you have that plan, you need to be able to go out and test it. You need to be able to verify that you can do that, right? That's it. That's legalized cheating. That's how you dominate an Ironman bike course. It's pretty simple. The math, very easy, right? The putting this plan together, very simple, right? Especially if you know what you're doing. And I just showed you all that. The hard part comes when you got to get your tushy on Mr. or Mrs. Bicycle, and you got to ride the bike, and you got to hit the normalized power, and you got to hit the average speed. So, all right, guys and gals, real quick reminder, 6-month or 12-month option for the membership program. It's going to get you into a drawing to win that 920 or an equivalent product if you already have a 920. And the next triathlon study hall call next Tuesday, the 15th, same standard time. Give me till tomorrow afternoon to get that link updated. And anyone who wants to check out the archives or give any of those videos a shot, try the MPro-2-weeks. Get you 2 weeks free.